Welcome, dear listener. If you've found yourself here, maybe you're ready to drift into something warm, something slow. Before we begin, go ahead and like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I always love knowing where our little quiet world reaches. Tonight, I'll tell you a love story. One that doesn't need grand declarations or sweeping gestures, just two people, a table in a cafe, and a day full of rain. Let's close our eyes and begin. Begins with the rain. Not a storm, not a downpour, just that soft kind of rain that barely makes a sound but leaves everything glistening. The kind of rain that taps gently on the leaves and dances down windows in long, lazy trails. The kind that makes you reach for your warmest scarf and tuck your chin a little deeper into the collar of your coat. The kind that makes the world feel smaller, quieter, softer. It's a Tuesday morning, late enough that the streetlights have flickered off, but early enough that the world hasn't quite filled up yet. People are still inside their routines. Cars slide by in that slow, cautious way they do on slick pavement. Windows glow, umbrellas bloom open like sleepy flowers along the pavement. You walk the same route you always walk. 3 blocks. Past the florist with its always late hour stode, the shutters are still closed, even though it's nearly 9. Past the little bookstore with the bell that jingles just a half second too late. Past the man who plays the accordion near the alley, though not on rainy days like this. And then your cafe. You don't even think of it by name anymore, just yours, the soft place with the creaky floorboards and the big windows that steam up in winter, where the baristas know your name, or at least the one you gave them, where the almond croissants are perfectly imperfect, always slightly tilted and dusted in sugar, and the coffee is warm enough to hold in your hands like a secret. The door gives its usual sigh as you open it, the bell above it giving that familiar 3-note chime. Inside, it smells like roasted beans and cinnamon and something just barely sweet, like vanilla left on a windowsill. You smile without meaning to. Your coat drips gently onto the welcome mat as you shake out your umbrella. You let your eyes sweep over the room, already reaching into your memory to anticipate the moment you'll sit at your usual place. Table 9, the one by the tall window where you can watch the rain travel sideways across the glass. The one tucked into the far corner, half hidden by a bookshelf someone once tried to alphabetize and then gave up on entirely, the one where no one ever sits but you, except today someone does. You pause mid-step, blinking. There, in your seat, well, not your seat technically, but the one you've claimed over the months in the quiet way people doise a man. Head bowed over a book, long fingers wrapped around a white mug, legs crossed beneath the table. He's wearing a gray sweater and glasses. His hair is a little tousled, like he's been in the rain longer than he meant to be. There's a satchel at his feet, a pencil tucked behind one ear. A quiet man with a quiet presence, as if he's always been here and you just hadn't noticed before. You stand in the entryway too long. The door shuts gently behind you with a click, nudging you into motion. "Morning," says Lena, the barista with the braid down to her waist. "Almond croissant and oat flat white?" You smile and nod automatically. Your gaze flicks back to table 9. You say, hesitating, "Is there seating?" She follows your eyes and gives you an apologetic grin. "Little busy this morning. You're welcome to share, though. He's lovely, quiet." You almost decline. You don't like sharing your table. You like your space, your rain, your little rituals. But something holds you still. The way the man's head tilts slightly as he reads, the softness in his posture, the way he hasn't even glanced up to notice your discomfort. "All right," you say softly. Lena hands you your tray. You walk toward table 9 slowly, weaving through the maze of chairs and elbows and half-read newspapers. When you reach the table, you clear your throat lightly. He looks up, just for a moment, His eyes are the color of old paper, weathered and warm and almost golden. They meet yours and then flick away again with a small nod as if to say, "You're welcome here." You sit. The chair makes a tiny squeak beneath you. You set your tray down carefully, unwrapping your croissant, arranging your napkin, settling your cup just so. He reads. You stare at your croissant like it might hold answers. The rain taps gently against the windows beside you, forming little rivulets that snake downward before vanishing. For a while, that's all it is. Two people, one table, a shared silence. You sip your drink. He turns a page. You tear off a piece of your croissant. He writes something in the margins of his book. The room around you hums. People laugh softly. Someone coughs. The grinder whirs in the back. But table 9 remains a quiet island. You don't speak. He doesn't either. But the silence isn't heavy. It doesn't press or pull. It rests around you gently, like the steam rising from your cup, like the sound of a distant train, like the pages of a well-worn book turned slowly so as not to wake anyone. At some point, you realize your foot is nearly touching his under the table. You don't move it. The space between your chairs feels like something small and careful, like a line you both see but don't cross. Yet, you glance at him again. His brow is furrowed slightly as he reads. You wonder what kind of book it is. Something literary, maybe. A novel or poetry. Not self-help, not business. Definitely not fantasy. His fingers are long and still smudged with ink. You don't know why that detail pleases you, but it does. The window beside you fogs slightly as the cafe fills with warmth. Outside, umbrellas pass by like drifting ships. You imagine you're inside a snow globe someone's gently shaking, safe from the storm swirling beyond. Time moves differently in the cafe. It always has. But now, at this table, it bends even further. It stretches and softens until you're not sure how long you've been sitting. 10 minutes? 30? An hour? The croissant is gone. Your coffee is cold. But you don't want to leave. He looks up again. Just briefly, and this time he smiles. It's not a wide smile, just a hint at the corners of his mouth, a smile that says, "Yes, I see you." You don't smile back right away, but your heart does. Somewhere inside you, it lifts its head like a cat waking from a nap, curious and slow. He goes back to reading. You go back to watching the rain, and without quite meaning to, you think, maybe table 9 doesn't only belong to me anymore. Maybe it never did. Maybe, just maybe, it's meant to be shared. You don't know yet. You're not rushing ahead. You stay exactly where you are, watching raindrops and pages and the way his brow furrows when he reads. And it's enough. For now, it's enough. You don't speak again for a long time. It feels like there's no need to. The rain has settled into its rhythm, not falling hard, just steady and even, like someone drumming gentle fingers on a wooden table. It makes a sound you feel more than hear. A hush in the background of everything. A lullaby without melody. The cafe continues around you, spoons stirring in ceramic heels, clicking softly on tile, the occasional hiss of steam, someone's low laughter that fades as quickly as it comes. It's a living place, but today, it all fades around the edges, blurred like watercolors, centered only on this little table, this moment, this man. You should feel awkward, but you don't. You should feel self-conscious, but somehow you don't. There's something strange about the way time behaves when he's across from you. It's like how music slows down at the end of a song, or how the light through a window at the end of the day seems thicker, golden, suspended. You glance at him again, not with any expectation, not hoping he'll look up or say anything, just looking. He turns another page. The sound of it is soft, deliberate. You can see the title now. The book he's reading. A quiet novel. One you read last spring, during a string of sleepless nights. You remember thinking the main character was a little too lonely to be believable, until the ending, until you saw yourself in those lonely corners too. He's just past the halfway point. You wonder what he thinks of it so far, but you don't ask. And maybe that's what feels strange about this, what feels lovely, that you don't have to. There's no pressure to fill the space, no obligation to smooth over silences or offer bits of yourself in trade for attention. You're not building anything, not yet. You're just being, existing, breathing in and out beside someone who doesn't ask you to be anything other than exactly who you are in this moment. You sit with your hands wrapped around your now lukewarm cup, not drinking, just holding. The warmth has faded, but the shape of the cup is familiar, grounding. You watch the condensation slide down the window beside you. You watch your own reflection waver in the glass. At some point, the barista brings over a new pot of sugar. "I thought you might be out," she says quietly, placing it on the corner of the table. You thank her. The man glances up briefly and nods in appreciation, then returns to his reading. The pot stays untouched. Still, it's a kind gesture. Another small thing folded into this moment, like cream into coffee. You notice little details you hadn't before. He has a tiny scar near his eyebrow. Faint, probably from childhood. His hands are ink-stained in a way that isn't fashionably it's lived in, honest. Like he still writes things down instead of always typing them. His knuckles are strong. The way he holds his book is careful, almost reverent. He's not beautiful, not in the way magazines mean, but there's something about him that is quietly beautiful. The kind of beauty you don't see right away, because it doesn't need to be seen, it just is. And that makes it feel like a secret, one you're being let in on, gently, without words. You wonder what he thinks of you. You wonder if he even notices you the way you notice him. You wouldn't blame him if he didn't. You're not doing anything particularly interesting. You're just sitting, just sipping coffee, just being. But somehow, it feels like enough. You shift slightly in your seat and your foot brushes his. Just lightly, a whisper of contact, like when you brush against a feather and don't feel it until it's gone. He doesn't pull away. He doesn't look up, but you feel it, that shared awareness. And something in you softens. The kind of softening that happens when you finally exhale after holding your breath for too long. When you realize no one is watching, so you don't have to perform. When you let yourself take up space without apology. You find yourself glancing at the clock. You're not late for anything. Nothing is waiting for you. And yet the minutes feel delicate, like you're holding something you might not get back. He closes his book gently, sliding a folded receipt between the pages as a placeholder. He stretches slightly, not a big motion, just a subtle shift of shoulders, a reach of his fingers around the coffee cup. And then he looks at you again. Not sharply, not in surprise, just acknowledgement, a quiet, patient kind of looking. Your eyes meet. There's a moment. And then, for the first time, he speaks. "Rainy mornings suit this place," he says. His voice is exactly what you imagined it might below, measured, with the faintest thread of something else. Not an accent, exactly, just a softness, a calm. You smile, a little slower than you mean to. "They do," you reply. "And that's all." He nods, as if confirming something. Maybe that you agree, maybe that you're real, maybe just that it was okay to say anything at all. Then he turns his attention back to the window. So do you. But now, the silence between you is different. Before, it was the silence of two strangers occupying the same space. Now, it's the silence of two people who've exchanged a sentence, who've acknowledged each other's presence in the most careful, delicate way. And somehow, that changes everything. You finish the last of your coffee. You look out at the street, where the umbrellas have become fewer and farther between. The rain has lightened into mist. Someone outside slips on the wet pavement and laughs. Their partner catches their arm. They kiss just a quick one, a blink of warmth in the gray morning, and keep walking. You watch them go. The stranger watches them too. And then he does something unexpected. He stands. Not abruptly, not like he's rushing out. He stretches gently, collects his book, lifts his cup. You think he's going to leave. But instead, he moves to the counter, orders a refill, and here's the part that stays with you, brings back a second almond croissant. He places it on the table. Between you. You look at it, then at him. He shrugs, the ghost of that earlier smile touching his lips again. I noticed you always get one, he says. Today's looked especially good. He says it like it's nothing, like he didn't just pay attention to something about you, like he didn't just confirm that he's noticed you too. You blink once, twice, then offer a soft thank you. He sits again, opens his book, doesn't say another word, and the companionable silence returns. But now it's something shared, something chosen. You break off a corner of the new croissant. He does the same. You eat in quiet, side by side. And you feel it, that quiet thrum beneath your skin, the sense that this moment is gently rooting itself somewhere deep inside you, that something has shifted just a little. The start of something so soft, so slow, it might take weeks to notice fully. You don't mind. You like slow things, books with long prologues, trees that take years to bloom, friendships that begin with half smiles and small kindnesses. And now maybe you like strangers who bring you pastries and let silence stretch like thread between you. When he finally stands to go, he doesn't say goodbye. He just nods, a little bow of the head. You nod back. He leaves his napkin behind, and for some reason you keep it. You sit alone now at table 9. The rain has stopped, but inside you, something is still blooming. It begins with a question, not a big one, not the kind that changes everything, just a quiet question, spoken across the space between 2 cups of coffee and the familiarity of an almost silence. It's 1 week later, another Tuesday. The rain has returned, as if it too has a standing appointment with table 9. The sound is softer this time, a steady hush that fills the air like a long sigh. You arrive wrapped in your scarf, cheeks rosy from the walk, hands warm inside your coat pockets. The bell above the cafe door chimes its usual 3-note song as you step inside, brushing droplets from your coat. And there he is, already at table 9. He's reading again, of course, a different book this time, thicker, more worn. You recognize the cover even before you see the title, a classic, one that people either pretend to love or really do. You've read it more than once. It stays with you in a way few books do. He glances up as you approach, and for the first time, he smiles first. It's small, but it reaches his eyes. You return the smile. Maybe yours is a little wider. You settle into the chair across from him like it's always been yours. There's no awkwardness, no hesitation. It's as if you're picking up a thread where you left off, even though you never quite tied it to anything last time. The croissant is already on your side of the table, ordered before you even arrived. That detail warms you more than the coffee in your cup. He doesn't say anything at first. He returns to his page, and you, to your quiet ritual, stirring your drink, tearing the pastry into perfect little bites, watching the rain write invisible messages on the windows. Minutes pass like that, and then he lifts his head slightly, his finger holding his place in the book. Have you read this? He asks. His voice is just as gentle as you remember. It doesn't interrupt the moment it folds into it, like another layer of the rain. You glance at the book, nod. More than once, you say. It feels different every time. That earns you a smile, a real one this time, the kind that stays a little longer. I just got to the part where they sit by the river, he says, and his thumb taps the edge of the page, where everything slows down for a moment. You know the scene. You know it well. It's one of my favorites, you reply. Everything in the story holds its breath, just for a little while. He looks down at the book, then back at you. That's exactly it, he murmurs. And just like that, the space between you narrows. Not physically, you're still seated across from one another, coffee cups between you, the table its own little island in the middle of the bustling cafe. But something else shifts, something unspoken, a shared thread of meaning winding between your words. You talk, not a lot, not loudly, just enough, about the book, the characters, the way some passages feel like they were written just for you, even though they were written long before you were born. He asks which part you love the most. You think about it, then tell him about a scene near the end most readers skip over because it feels too quiet, too slow. But that's why I like it, you say. Nothing really happens, but everything changes. He nods. You can tell he understands, not just the book, but the way you read it, the way you let stories shape you in small, unseen ways. He tells you he almost didn't pick the book up, that someone once told him it was too meandering, too melancholy. But I don't mind stories that wander, he says. Sometimes they end up somewhere more interesting than you expected. You find yourself smiling again. It's not a conscious decision. It just happens. Wandering's underrated, you say. His gaze holds yours for a beat longer than usual. Yes, he agrees. It is. Outside, the rain thickens slightly, streaking the windows in ribbons. The world beyond the glass becomes smudged trees, umbrellas, taillights, everything softened into watercolor. But inside the cafe, it's warm. It's always warm. The conversation drifts from the book to other things slowly, naturally. You don't ask about his job, or his last name, or what part of town he lives in. He doesn't ask you either. It's not about that. Instead, you talk about the stories that stay with you. Books you read as a child, books that made you cry in public, books with endings you still think about years later. He listens carefully. You can tell by the way he tilts his head slightly when you speak, by the way he doesn't interrupt, not even once, by the way he repeats one of your phrases back to you not to correct it, but to admire it, like a stone held up to the light. You find yourself wanting to hear more from him, not just about books, but about the way he thinks, the way he sees things. You like the way he chooses words, carefully but not self-consciously, like someone placing stones across a stream, just close enough to step across. At one point, you both fall quiet again. It's not uncomfortable. It's not empty. It's just enough. You sip the last of your coffee. He turns another page. You both look out the window at the same time. A child splashes in a puddle across the street, red boots kicking up tiny waves. His mother laughs and pulls him gently toward the crosswalk. The light changes. They disappear. You both turn back to the table. You don't know what to say next. But maybe you don't need to say anything. Maybe this is one of those days when things speak for themselves. Eventually, you glance at the clock. You're not late exactly, but the time has slipped away from you, the way it does when you're reading a good book or when you're in one. You wrap your scarf again, slower than necessary. He notices, closes his book without rushing. You always sit here? He asks. You nod. Tuesdays, mostly. Good, he says with a small, thoughtful smile. And that's it. He doesn't ask for your number. He doesn't offer his. No promises. No pressure. Just a shared understanding, wrapped in the warm hush of rain and stories and the memory of a river in a novel. As you leave, the door chimes again behind you. The air outside smells like wet stone and distant flowers. You breathe it in. You don't look back. You don't need to. You already know what you'll find next Tuesday. And somehow, That's enough to carry you through the week. The next Tuesday, you wake up before your alarm. You don't mean to, your body just does it, like it knows what day it is, like something inside you has been waiting quietly all week and can't quite wait another hour. You lie in bed a moment longer than usual. The rain is already tapping at the windows, softer than last time, more like a whisper than a song. You listen to it with your eyes still closed, the comforter pulled up under your chin. It's not a dramatic storm, just a gentle reminder of the pattern this new rhythm has taken. A Tuesday, a table, a man with a book. You don't tell anyone about it. Not your coworker who always asks what you're doing after work. Not your sister who sends voice notes from too many time zones away. Not even your friend who always knows when you're holding something back. This isn't something you want to name. Not yet. You're still living inside it, and speaking it aloud might make it harder to feel. You dress slowly, choosing the sweater with the threadbare sleeves and the soft collar that folds like clouds. You pause at your bookshelf on the way out, fingers brushing spines. You hesitate, then slide one small paperback free, a favorite, dog-eared, worn, full of quiet little stories with no real endings. You tuck it into your bag without thinking too hard. Outside, the sky is pewter. Everything has that bluish, early morning tint, as if the world hasn't quite chosen a color palette for the day yet. The cafe is warm when you step in, warm in a way that feels like returning somewhere, not arriving. He's already there, of course. You don't know how he always beats you there. Maybe he's just earlier than you are. Maybe he's been waiting a little longer than he'll admit. Maybe he, too, wakes up before his alarm on Tuesdays. He looks up before you even reach the table. He smiles, not a shy smile, not a tentative one, a knowing smile. The kind that belongs to two people who have seen each other in silence, spoken just enough, and returned anyway. There's already a croissant waiting for you. Your cup is still empty, but that doesn't matter. It'll be full soon enough. You sit down without needing to ask. He's brought the same book from last time. This time, he's near the end. You wonder if he slowed down reading it, if he held back the last few chapters the way you sometimes do, not wanting something good to be over. I finished it, he says, even before you unwrap the napkin from your croissant. Oh? You reply, arching your brow. He nods. Last night, I didn't mean to. I just kept reading. You smile. That's how you know it's good. He pauses. I didn't want to talk about it yet. I wanted to wait until today. Your smile softens. Why? He shrugs lightly. It felt like something that should be shared. And just like that, the rest of the world fades. You lean forward, chin in your hand, and ask, well, what did you think? And so begins the next part of the ritual. Not just reading, not just silence, but sharing. He tells you what surprised him, what confused him, which character he wanted to protect and which one he still doesn't understand. You nod along, jumping in here and there to offer your thoughts. It's not a book club. It's not a debate. It's something warmer, gentler, like two people standing on opposite sides of a river, tossing stones across and watching how they ripple the water. When the book discussion slows, you pull the paper back from your bag and slide it toward him. He lifts an eyebrow, but takes it without hesitation. What's this? One of my favorites, you say. It's quiet, no real plot, just people existing. He turns it over in his hands, reads the back cover. Sounds like something I'd like. You smile. That's what I thought. He opens to the first page and reads the first few lines silently. You sip your coffee, watching him without pretending not to. He nods. Yeah, I like the way it starts. You find your breath catching a little at that. You don't say anything. You just hold on to the moment, the simplicity of it, the shared affection for small stories, for the in-between spaces of life. He doesn't keep reading. He places the book beside him and lifts his cup instead. You ask him what kind of stories he likes most when he's not reading what you hand him. He thinks for a moment. I like stories where people don't fix everything, where nothing really gets tied up in a bow, but still, somehow, there's hope. You nod. Hope without guarantees. He smiles. Exactly. And then he asks you. You hesitate not because you don't know, but because you've never really had to put it into words before. I like stories that stay with me, you say slowly. Not because of what happened, but because of how they made me feel, like someone reached into my chest and touched something soft and unfinished, and then left it gently alone. He looks at you for a long moment, and then, quietly, that's the best kind. The conversation drifts after that. You talk about libraries, the smell of old books, your favorite places to read. You admit to reading the back covers of books in bookstores just to feel something. He admits he sometimes buys books just for their covers. You don't talk about your jobs. You don't talk about your families. You don't ask about relationship statuses or how long it's been since the last heartbreak. None of that feels necessary. Not yet. Maybe not ever. There's something refreshing about that. Something safe. You don't need to explain yourself to him. You just need to be here. At one point, your hands brush as you both reach for the sugar. It's unintentional, but neither of you pull away quickly. He says, "Sorry." You say, "It's okay." And the moment stays there, resting between the mugs and crumbs. Outside, the rain begins to ease. The clouds lighten. The window clears just enough to show the color of the trees across the street. Someone outside opens an umbrella, even though it's barely raining now. Inside, the world remains unchanged, warm, golden, full of possibility. Eventually, he finishes his drink, glances at the clock, then back at you. "I'll bring the book back next week," he says, tapping the paperback you gave him. You nod. "Only if you like it." "I already do," he says. You laugh quietly. "One page in?" He shrugs. "Sometimes, one page is enough." You both stand, slowly. Neither of you really wants to be the first to leave, but someone has to. As you slide your arms into your coat, he hesitates, then says, "I wrote a short story once about a girl in a cafe." You pause, scarf halfway around your neck. "Oh?" He nods. "She always sat in the same seat, ordered the same pastry, and one day someone was already there." Your smile widens. "Did she sit down anyway?" He tilts his head. "She did." You open your mouth to ask more, but he just smiles, gives you a slight wave, and steps out into the now damp morning. You stand in the cafe a moment longer, holding your scarf, holding that sentence in your mind. And then, as the door swings shut behind him, you let yourself whisper aloud, just for you, "Sometimes one page is enough." It happens again the next week, and the week after that, and then again. Soon, Tuesdays stop feeling like Tuesdays and start feeling like something else entirely. Not a day of the week, but a chapter, a thread, a continuation of a quiet story only you and he are writing, line by line, week by week, with coffee-stained pages and slow-spoken dialogue. You don't speak about it to anyone. You don't mark it in your calendar. You don't make plans or send texts or confirm the way you would with any normal meeting. You just go, and he's there, always at table 9, always with a book, and now with your book, the one you gave him. It sits beside his coffee like it belongs there. He reads it slowly, respectfully, not racing to the end, not trying to consume it, just letting it unfold. You recognize the bookmark he uses, one of the napkins from the cafe, folded into thirds. It makes you smile. The conversations deepen, but they never quicken. There's no rush between you, no pressure to arrive somewhere. You talk the way people walk when they're not late, unhurried, observing, taking in the scenery. He tells you about a poem he once memorized without meaning to, just because he liked how it sounded in his head. You tell him about the time you tried to write a novel and gave up 3 chapters in, but still think about the characters sometimes, as if they're living their lives somewhere without you. He doesn't laugh. He says, maybe they are. One morning, he brings a tiny book of haikus, dog-eared and taped along the spine. He slides it across the table. I found this at a used bookstore on my walk here, he says. I read one and thought of you. You open to the page he's bookmarked with a matchstick. It reads, the tea has cooled, but I hold the cup longer than I need to. You run your finger under the last line. He doesn't say anything else, and he doesn't need to. You read the poem 3 times before you look up. His eyes meet yours like he's been waiting. You found me in a haiku, you say. He smiles. Seemed fitting. You don't know what to do with the feeling that gives you. It's not loud, it's not electric, but it's there. Soft and glowing, like a lamp left on in an upstairs window. After that, small things begin to shift. He begins to order your croissant before you arrive, even if you're running late. He always leaves the end piece for you, the sugariest bit, the last buttery crumble. You start bringing him books you think he'll like. Not often, not every week. Just when something calls to you, you write your name in the front cover, always in pencil. One day, he writes thank you in the margin beside a line you once told him was your favorite. The baristas start calling you the Tuesday pair. You pretend not to notice, but secretly it thrills you. You don't sit with anyone else. He doesn't either. It's not a rule. You've never said it aloud, but there it is. An understanding. An unspoken belonging. One day, he arrives before you, nothing new there but. He looks up the moment you step inside, not after you've ordered, not after you've hung up your coat. The moment, like his body knew you were near before his mind did. He gives you a smile. You feel it land inside your chest like a soft thump. You slide into your seat, and he pushes a plate toward you, this time with 2 croissants. 2? You ask, amused. They were fresh out of the oven, he says. I panicked. You laugh. Panicked pastry ordering, a noble affliction. I regret nothing, he replies solemnly. And you realize he's funny. Not in a performative way, not loud or attention-seeking, just subtle, quiet, timed like good poetry. You like that about him. You like that he knows how to sit in silence and how to place a well-timed word at just the right moment. Somewhere in the middle of that morning, he asks you if you ever write anymore. You don't know how he remembers. You barely mentioned it, maybe once, in passing. You look down at your coffee. Sometimes, mostly in notebooks I never reread. That counts. You shrug. Not really. It does, he says. You believe him. Later, as you're standing to leave, you reach into your bag and pull out one of those notebooks. It wasn't planned. It just happens. You hand it to him without saying anything. He takes it with a kind of quiet reverence, like he knows this isn't just paper, like he understands that some things don't need introductions. I'll read it slowly, he says. And you believe that too. It keeps going like this. Tuesdays stack up like postcards, little snapshots of the same table, the same window, the same faces, the same rain. He never asks for your last name. You never ask for his. Not because you're hiding, but because you're savoring. There's something about the not knowing that feels holy, something about building a connection without the scaffolding of resumes and history and social media handles. You know the way he holds his mug. You know the sound of his breath when he's about to speak. You know how his face looks when he reads something that moves him. Isn't that enough? Isn't that more? One Tuesday, he says, I think about this table when I'm not here. You nod, fingers curled around your cup. Me too. You think they'd let us rename it? Table 9 has a certain mystery, you say. He grins. Then we'll let it be. And so it is. The days between Tuesdays start to feel longer. Not because you're unhappy, just because you've found something you look forward to. A rhythm, a tether, a kind of soft place to land. You catch yourself walking slower on Monday evenings, as if pulling time toward morning. You wonder if he does too. You don't know where this is going. You don't ask. You're content to sit across from him week after week, watching the world turn slowly behind the glass, sharing the kind of stillness most people never notice. The kind that grows into something else when you're not looking. And it does. It is. Already. It happens slowly, as all the best things do. There's no announcement, no sudden shift, just a gradual softening around the edges of your Tuesdays, a deepening of something already beautiful, a warmth you grow so used to that you begin to carry it with you, even on the days in between. You don't realize you've started arriving earlier until one morning you walk in and the barista says, "He's not here yet." You laugh softly, not because you're embarrassed, but because it surprises you. You weren't watching the clock. You didn't plan it. It just felt like time to be here. When he does arrive, a few minutes later, he lifts his hand in greeting before he even opens the door, as if he knew you'd be there. He always does. That morning he brings you a tiny jar of jam. Blackberry and lavender. The label is handwritten. You look at it, then at him, amused. "Jam?" He shrugs. "You always eat your croissant without anything. I thought you might like it." You open the jar. It smells like summer, like wild bushes and soft mornings. You spread a little on your pastry and take a bite. Your eyes close without thinking. This tastes like a garden in June. He grins. Good. You don't ask where he found it. You don't need to. Some things are better left as soft mysteries, like how he always knows which page to mark for you in a book, or how his smiles have gotten just a little bit longer lately. That becomes the first ritual, the jam. Then others begin to follow. One Tuesday you arrive to find a pencil resting beside your cup. It's old, worn smooth by fingers, but the tip is freshly sharpened. "What's this for?" you ask. "You said you hadn't written anything in weeks," he says. "Thought I'd remove an excuse." You don't write anything that day, but you take the pencil home. The next week, you bring a folded page of handwritten lines. No title, no explanation, just words. You slip it into his book while he's ordering coffee. You watch his face as he finds it later. He doesn't say anything, but he reads it twice, you can tell, and he folds the page even more carefully before putting it away. That becomes the second ritual, the words. Soon the rituals start stacking up like stones along a path small, steady, guiding. You leave little doodles in the margins of books, a cat curled into a semicolon, a window drawn beside a line about longing. He replies with underlined sentences, with comments in the corners, with tiny check marks beside phrases you know made him pause. You bring him pressed flowers and napkins. He brings you single lines of poetry on the backs of receipts. And still you don't talk about the obvious things. You don't ask what he does for work, or where he was born, or what kind of childhood he had. You don't know if he lives alone, if he has siblings, if he's had his heart broken recently or often or never. And it doesn't matter. What matters is this, that he notices when you wear a new scarf and compliments it without fanfare, that he brings an extra spoon when he orders something sweet, even though you never ask for a bite, that he once drew a map of the fictional town from your favorite novel on the back of a paper placemat, that you once reached for the sugar at the same time and didn't stop touching his hand for a long, slow second longer than you used to. These are your truths. These are your shared threads. One morning it rains harder than usual. The windows fog instantly, and the streets look like rivers. You arrive soaked, even with your umbrella. Your boots squeak slightly as you walk in. He stands the moment he sees you, offers you his scarf. You laugh. You'll need it later. I'd rather you be warm now, he says simply. You take it. It smells like paper and cedar, like a memory you haven't lived yet. You sit, fingers tucked under the scarf's soft weight. He returns to his chair like this is the most natural thing in the world. And somehow, it is. The baristas barely look at you two anymore. They just set down your orders without asking. One day, Lena leaves a small vase with a flower on your table. No note. You suspect she knows. You suspect everyone does. But no one says anything. It's your quiet little secret, hidden in plain sight. Another ritual begins. Once the cafe starts closing earlier on Tuesday's new policy, they explain he begins walking you home. Not all the way, just part of the way. Just to the corner with the bakery that's never open and the lamppost that always flickers. You stroll through puddles. You talk about what clouds remind you of. You don't rush. Sometimes your hands brush. Sometimes they stay that way. You never make a plan for the next week, never say, see you next Tuesday, but it's understood. You don't need a calendar to remember the way he looks sitting across from you, pencil behind his ear, fingers turning a page with reverence. You don't need reminders to recall the sound of his laugh, low, rare, the kind that lives just under the surface of his sentences. You don't need promises, because this isn't a thing that needs declaring. It's just becoming. Quietly, softly, one slow Tuesday at a time. The first Tuesday it doesn't rain feels almost wrong. You wake and listen, expecting the familiar hush against the window pane, the small percussion of droplets, the usual silver sheen cast over the morning, but all you hear is stillness, dry stillness. No tap, no mist, no softened footsteps on the pavement below. You open the curtain and blink against the unfamiliar light. Sunlight. Actual, golden, lazy sunlight pooling across the rooftops and slipping through the bare tree branches like honey through a sieve. Your room looks different in this light, brighter, more honest. The corners that usually stay tucked in shadow stretch out slowly. You can see the dust on your bookshelf, the thread pulled loose on your sleeve. It's a beautiful morning, but it feels strange somehow, as if someone has changed the setting on the story you're in, as if the script called for gray skies and someone up there decided to improvise. Still you go. You get ready like you always do. The same soft sweater, your coat a little lighter than usual. You take a little longer with your tea, but you still leave early enough to make it to the cafe by 9. And as you walk, you notice everything. The city looks freshly washed. The sky is a quiet blue, the kind of color that doesn't draw attention to itself but simply exists. The florist shop has flung open its shutters for the first time in weeks. Buckets of tulips and ranunculus spill out onto the sidewalk like an apology for all the days they were hidden. The bookstore bell jingles at just the right time as someone steps out, tucking a wrapped paperback under their arm. A pigeon struts confidently across your path, and the man with the accordion is playing again, standing in his usual corner, the music slow and sweet, full of unspoken joy. You don't bring an umbrella. You don't need one, but you carry your notebook, just in case the sunlight inspires something. You push open the cafe door, and there he is. Of course. Table 9, already seated, already reading, already with 2 coffees on the table and a fresh croissant cut in half, one side stacked neatly with a tiny jar of jam. He looks up as the bell chimes overhead. His smile breaks slowly, like the morning itself. Sunshine, he says, tilting his head toward the window. What do we do with ourselves? You shrug, unbuttoning your coat. Panic, probably. He grins. Too late for that. I already ordered the usual. You sit, carefully, smoothing the corner of your napkin. The sunlight pours through the cafe's windows in wide golden stripes. You can see dust dancing in it, swirling lazily, as if it too has nowhere else to be. He leans back, arms stretched slightly, the book in his lap forgotten. It looks different in here, he says. It does, you agree, like a painting that's been varnished. He watches the light move across the floor, then glances back at you. You look different too. You arch a brow. Oh, just bright. You don't know what to say to that, so you sip your coffee. He sips his too, and that becomes the first silence of the day, not awkward, not uncertain, just the kind of quiet that sits between people who've grown comfortable beside each other, the kind that doesn't ask to be filled. When the second silence arrives, you're both standing at the counter, waiting for his second cup and your plate of toasted banana bread. The barista makes a joke about sunglasses. You both laugh politely. Outside, the sunlight is almost too beautiful to ignore. You glance toward the door, then at him, and before you really mean to, you ask, "Want to go for a walk?" You're not sure why you say it. Maybe it's the sun. Maybe it's the way you've been wondering what he looks like when he walks beside you, not just behind or ahead. Maybe it's because today isn't ordinary, and you want to make something of it. He doesn't hesitate. "Yeah," he says, "let's go." And so you do. You leave the cafe for the first time together, not just walking to the corner, not just parting ways, actually stepping out side by side. You walk slowly, aimlessly, down the sun-drenched street, past the flower shop, past the bookstore. You talk about the usual things, favorite words, stories that made you cry, the way sunlight always makes city streets look a little like movie sets. You stop in front of the florist's open window. He gestures toward the buckets of blooms. "Pick one," he says. You hesitate. He smiles. "I insist." You look. There are tulips in every shade, pale roses, wild-looking anemones, and a bucket of tiny blue forget-me-nots you almost miss. You point. He pays. He hands you a single forget-me-not stem, careful not to crush it. You hold it like a ribbon. "I'll press it," you say. "Mark your page with it." You nod. Yes. You keep walking. The street leads to a park neither of you has visited before, tucked between two apartment blocks and shaded by tall elms. The benches are empty. The path is cracked. But there's a fountain in the center that glitters in the sunlight, and suddenly you're both drawn to it. You sit on the edge. You don't talk for a while. Birds sing somewhere above, leaves rustle, a breeze plays with the ends of your scarf. He reaches into his satchel and pulls out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote something," he says. You take it slowly. Unfold it. Read it. It's a short paragraph, not quite a poem, not quite a letter, just a piece of writing about light and benches and the way things feel more permanent when they're shared. You read it twice. When you look up, he's watching you. "It's beautiful," you say. "It's yours." You tuck it into your coat pocket with the forget-me-not. The third silence of the day comes then, longer than the others. You let it stretch between you like a shadow in the sun. It doesn't need anything from you. It just wants to be. When you walk back to the cafe, your steps are slower. The day is fuller. Your heart feels like something that's been carefully, quietly opened, and now sits basking in the warmth. You don't talk about what the walk meant. You don't name it. You just return to table 9. Sit, smile, sip the last of your coffee, now cold, and watch the light slide back across the floor as the sun begins to shift toward afternoon. When it's time to go, he walks you all the way to your door this time, not just the corner, all the way. You stand outside your building and look up at your window, then back at him. "Thanks for the flower," you say. "Thanks for the morning," he says. You nod. So does he. Neither of you moves for a moment. Then you step inside. You climb the stairs. You set the flower between 2 pages of your notebook, and you smile, thinking, maybe I'll keep writing this story just to see where it goes. The next Tuesday, you sit beside him, not across, not in your usual seat with the sugar jar between you like a boundary line drawn in cream and quietness, not with the safety of distance. Beside him, it doesn't happen by decision. There's no moment where you plan it, no thought that precedes the gesture. You arrive, and someone is already seated across from him, an older man with a chessboard, mid-game, nodding and sipping espresso while a queen lies on its side. They exchange a few polite words and a handshake, and then the man leaves, the game unfinished, as if time got the best of them. You hesitate for only half a heartbeat, and then he looks up and says, "Sit here." He pats the seat beside him, like it's always been yours. And so you do. It changes everything. Not all at once, not loudly, but in the small, invisible ways that distance shrinks and things begin to feel different, closer, warmer, new. From this angle, you see the slope of his shoulder, the faint pattern in the fabric of his sweater, the curve of his wrist as it turns a page. You can smell his cologne, now faint, like cedar and ink and rain-soaked cotton. Your knees almost touch. And suddenly, every movement matters more than it did before. He offers you the book he's brought today, a collection of essays. He's already marked a few passages, little slips of torn paper peeking out like whispers. You read them together, literally together. Your heads lean toward each other. His shoulder brushes yours when he shifts. At one point, your hair grazes his cheek and he doesn't move away. Neither do you. You take turns reading aloud, your voices overlapping in places, one fading into the other. It's strange how easy it feels, and how electric. But not in a loud, pulsing way, not in the way of movie kisses in the rain or declarations shouted over music. This is something different, something steady and sweet, like a kettle whistling low, like the way sunlight lands on your hand and lingers. You read one paragraph in particular that makes you pause. It's about doors, about how some people feel like open doors, welcoming, effortless, full of light, and how others are doors you only realize you needed after they've already been opened. He watches you as you read that part, and when you lower the book, you don't say anything. Neither does he. But something shifts in the air between you, a stillness, a knowing. You share the croissant today. Actually share it. He breaks it in half and you both eat slowly, without looking away from each other for long. You comment on the flakiness. He says it's probably the best one yet. You don't tell him that it isn't the croissant that's different. Later, he asks you a question. Have you ever been in love? It's not abrupt. It doesn't break the spell. It arrives softly, on the tail end of a silence, as natural as asking for the time or the weather. You don't answer right away. Not because you don't want to, just because you want to answer honestly. You look at your hands, at the ring you always wear on your middle finger, even though it means nothing. You trace the edge of your coffee cup. I don't know, you say, maybe once, but it never felt like this. The second part slips out before you mean it to. You feel it land in the space between you like a stone in still water, not heavy, not disruptive, just present. He doesn't flinch. He says, I think that means something. You nod. Then you ask, what about you? He exhales, slowly. I thought I had, he says, but looking back, I think I was in love with the idea of being understood. You glance sideways at him. And now? He meets your eyes. Now I think maybe I am. You don't speak after that. There's no need. You sit in that new stillness for a long while, both of you facing forward, shoulders close, the sounds of the cafe softening like a distant tide. Eventually he pulls something from his satchel, a folded napkin, not written on, drawn on. It's table 9, perfectly sketched. The bookshelf, the crooked sugar pot, the chairs, and 2 cups, side by side. I sketched this last week, he says, before the walk. You hold it gently, like it might vanish. There's a tiny heart drawn under one of the chairs. You trace it with your finger. You're getting bold, you tease. Only on paper, he says, laughing lightly. You fold the napkin and slip it into your notebook, between the pages where you once pressed the forget-me-not. When the time comes to leave, he walks with you again. Not just to the corner, not just part of the way. He doesn't ask this time. He just falls into step beside you like it's the most natural thing in the world. The streets are dry, the sky a soft golden blue. The wind tugs at your coat and lifts your hair, and still you don't mind. He stops in front of a shop window, points to a stack of handmade journals. I almost bought one for you, he says, but I didn't know if that was too much. You look at them, linen-bound, soft colors, the kind of pages that make your handwriting feel more graceful. It's not too much, you say. He smiles. Next week, then. You reach the gate of your building. This time you pause before stepping away. I had a good time today, you say. It's simple, honest. He nods. Me too. You hesitate, then say softly, I like sitting beside you. I like being beside you, he replies. And you think maybe that's the truest thing anyone's said to you in a long time. You lean in. You don't kiss. Not yet. But your foreheads touch for the briefest second. It's enough. You part with your heart warm and full and quiet, like music still playing after the lyrics end. And that night, before you sleep, you open your notebook. Inside the pocket, the napkin drawing waits. You press your fingers to it gently, like it's a memory you can feel. And in the soft hush of your room, with the window open to the night breeze, you finally whisper the thing you've known for a while now. This isn't just a table. And you smile. It's the beginning. You arrive early that morning. Earlier than you need to, earlier than usual, earlier than he ever does. There's a strange feeling in your chest. Not quite nervousness, not dread, just anticipation, sharpened by the thought that this Tuesday could be like the others, but it also might not be. You slept lightly last night, tossing a little more than usual, thinking too long about things that don't need thinking. The way his hand almost brushed yours when he gave you the drawing, the look on his face when he said, I think maybe I am, the soft space between you now that holds more than just words. You woke before your alarm. The light was barely creeping over the rooftops. You made tea you didn't drink, pulled on your softest sweater, and let your legs carry you through the morning without much thought. And now, here you are. The cafe door opens with its familiar chime. The air smells like orange peel and espresso. Warmth wraps around you, even before your coat is off. Lena greets you, as always. She smiles, but there's something behind her eyes. Maybe she can already tell. Maybe she already knows. You looked at table 9. Empty. It shouldn't matter. It's early. He's often late by a minute or two. Sometimes he runs behind when the weather's bad or when traffic is strange. You've waited before. That's all this is. You sit down. You order the croissant, just one, no jam today. You wrap your hands around your cup and stare out the window, pretending not to look at the door each time it opens. But you do. The hands on the wall clock tick forward. 10 minutes, then 20. You drink slowly, pretending you're enjoying the silence, pretending that the absence of him hasn't settled like a small weight on your shoulders. You open your notebook, flip to the napkin sketch of the table, stare at it for a while, then close the cover again. The cafe hums around you, conversations float, laughter curls up from the corner by the window. Someone orders chai in a bright voice that reminds you how far away from him everything feels today. You glance at the door again. Still nothing. You take out your pencil and try to write, but the words won't come. Your thoughts trip over each other. The page stays mostly blank. You try not to check your phone. You check it anyway. Nothing. No message, no missed call. Not that you expected one. You never exchanged numbers. It was part of the quiet charm of it all. The delicate boundary, the unspoken rule. No pressure, no promises. But today, it aches a little. That unspoken thing now feels like absence. You look at the seat beside you, the one he took last week, the one where your knees almost touched. It feels wrong somehow for it to be empty, like a character forgot their entrance line, like a song is missing its chorus. You wait another 15 minutes. Still, he doesn't come. You finish your coffee. You leave the croissant half-eaten. When you stand to leave, you do it slowly, as if part of you still hopes he'll walk in the door at the last moment, that he'll appear, rain damp and apologetic, smile already forming. But he doesn't. Outside, the weather doesn't know how to feel. There's a haze over the sky, not quite cloud, not quite sun. The streets are damp, but not wet. The air carries a chill, but not cold enough to need your scarf. You walk aimlessly. No destination, just movement. Your boots tap gently on the pavement, and you wonder if he's okay, if he forgot, if something came up, if he just didn't want to come. The last one lingers. You don't want to believe it, but you let yourself think it, just for a moment. You let it settle in your chest like a cold hand, and then you shake it off. He wouldn't do that. At least you don't think he would. You stop in front of the florist's shop. The shutters are half down today. The stems in the buckets lean toward the street like they're tired. You glance at the forget-me-nots, and something inside you stings. You walk the long way home. When you finally reach your apartment, you sit on your bed and let your coat stay on. You don't move for a long time. You just sit, staring at the book on your nightstand, the one you were going to give him today, with your name already penciled in the corner. You think about texting someone, anyone, just to fill the space. But you don't. You curl up under the blanket, your boots still on, and you try to remember that not everything has to mean something, that sometimes people are late, that sometimes plans shift, that sometimes things pause. You close your eyes. The day feels gray around the edges. You drift for a while and not quite sleep, not quite waking. That quiet in-between where your thoughts loop softly and your heart tries to soften its own echoes. You dream, a little, of Table 9, of rain that never quite reaches the ground, of his hand passing you a book, of the drawing, of that single stem of blue he gave you, pressed in your notebook, still flattened between two forgotten stanzas. When you wake, the room is darker than it should be. You've lost a little time. You sit up slowly, stretch, blink your way back into the world. You still feel the absence of him like a missing coat hook, like a shelf where something used to rest. But it doesn't feel like the end. It feels like waiting. It feels like a breath being held. And when you close your notebook again, you press your fingers lightly to the cover and whisper the words you couldn't write earlier. I missed you today. You don't expect him to come back, not because you've stopped hoping, but because part of you has started learning how to brace for disappointment. A small, reluctant part, the one that still keeps expectations folded neatly away like winter scarves in a drawer, just in case. But even with that on Tuesday, you still go. You take your time getting ready, slower than usual. You stare a little longer in the mirror, wondering if anything about you has changed in a week. You brush your hair back like maybe it makes a difference. It doesn't. The sky is overcast again, a gentle gray that reminds you of the first time you saw him, the first time Table 9 wasn't empty. You press the drawing of the table his napkin sketch into the back of your notebook between 2 pages of unwritten poems. The forget-me-not is still there, curled into itself, faded now, fragile. You walk slower than usual, each step measured, as though walking too quickly might break something already thin. The cafe looks the same, always does. The chalkboard menu out front is smudged, unreadable from the rain earlier that morning. The bell above the door sings its usual sleepy tune. And then you see him, seated at table 9, waiting. He's there. He's there. Everything stills. The weight that's been tucked into your chest loosens not in a dramatic, cinematic way, but in a breath, in a long, invisible exhale. He looks up as the door closes behind you, and you see it in his face before he even says a word. The apology. It's not dramatic, not desperate, just there, woven into the softness around his eyes, the way he doesn't look away. You walk over, slowly, as if the ground beneath you needs to believe it too. You stop beside the table, unsure whether to sit across from him or next to him. He gestures, gently, toward the seat beside him. You sit, still quiet, still holding on to a feeling you haven't quite named. "I'm sorry," he says finally. His voice is the same, familiar, but lower somehow, thicker. "I meant to come," he continues. "I wanted to. I should have found a way to tell you." You don't ask why he missed last week. You don't need a reason. You're not collecting excuses. You're just collecting moments. And he's here now. You nod slowly. "I waited," you say. "I know." A pause. "I kept the croissant," you add without meaning to. He smiles. That quiet smile, the one that says more than he ever could. "I brought something," he says, reaching into his coat pocket. He pulls out a napkin. Not folded, not blank. Written on. He hands it to you, and you hold it carefully, afraid it might tear or vanish. It's his handwriting, familiar, all lowercase, soft, the way he always writes. It says, "I come here every Tuesday, except last Tuesday. But I wanted to. I just couldn't. But I thought about this table the whole time. I hope that counts for something." You read it twice. Then once more, slower. You look up, his eyes are waiting. "It counts," you whisper. He nods, as though he's been holding that sentence like a lifeline. And then, softly, "I missed this." You smile gently. "Me too." You don't need to say more. You place the napkin carefully in your notebook with the others, next to the flower, the sketch, the note he once left in the book you lent him. You're building something there, a quiet archive of small moments, of paper and ink and memory. This time you don't order a croissant. You don't need to. He's already done it. This time there's jam and a second spoon. You eat in silence for a while. But it's not a silence of absence. It's a silence full of presence. You feel your shoulders relax. The tension that had begun to curl itself around your ribs begins to loosen, like a soft thread being gently unwound. He leans toward you just slightly, not close enough to touch, just close enough to feel. "I almost wrote my number on that napkin," he says. You look at him, but then I thought, he continues, "maybe that's not how this story wants to be written." You nod slowly. "No," you say, "maybe not yet." And then, after a breath, "I like the way this is unfolding." He smiles, looks down at his coffee. You add, "though if you disappear for 2 Tuesdays in a row, I reserve the right to demand a full explanation in writing. Deal." You both laugh, and it's the kind of laughter that feels like sunlight through cloud and expected, easy, healing. As the morning deepens, you talk more softly about how odd it is to miss a person you haven't technically known for long, about the way some people feel familiar before they ever tell you their middle name. He tells you he thought of table 9 as he fell asleep last Tuesday, that he imagined you were still there with your notebook open and your scarf draped over the back of the chair. He says he missed your presence, not just your voice. You tell him you brought a book last week you meant to give him, but now you've read it again and decided to keep it a little longer. He says, that's fair. And somehow, just like that, everything is mended. Not forgotten, but gently repaired, like a crack in porcelain filled with gold. You realize something, sitting there beside him. It's not that he didn't come last week, it's that he came back. And he came back with a note, a napkin, a truth. That counts. That always counts. When it's time to go, he stands with you, walks you to the door, opens it before you can reach for the handle, and as the bell above the door rings and the wind brushes past your face, he says, next Tuesday? You smile. I'll be here. He nods, a slow, content nod. Then quieter, I'll bring another napkin, just in case. And with that, he steps out into the soft, overcast day, his coat swinging gently with his stride, his figure fading slowly into the quiet light. You stay a moment longer inside. The cafe is warm, familiar. You look back at table 9. Still not just a table, still something more. You open your notebook. You press the napkin flat. You add today's date. And in the corner, in your own handwriting, you write, he came back. It starts with a question, simple, unassuming, spoken over coffee and jam in a Tuesday morning sky that's neither blue nor gray, but something in between. Would you ever come here on a Saturday? He doesn't ask it like it's a big thing. He doesn't lean in dramatically, doesn't lace it with meaning. He just says it while buttering a croissant, as if it's the most natural sentence in the world. But still, it hangs in the air a little longer than it needs to. You look up from your cup. Saturday, you echo. He nods, just wondering. And for a moment you think about all the things this question means. Tuesdays have been yours, sacred in a way, unspoken and reliable, a rhythm you never had to define, a secret thread that only ran through that one sliver of the week, neat and quiet, contained. But Saturday, that's different. Saturday is loud with possibility, messier, closer to real life, a weekend day, a day when people run errands, meet friends, oversleep, dress casually or not at all. A day that doesn't feel like a page in a book. It feels like walking off the page entirely. And yet, you meet his eyes. They're soft, unreadable in the best way, not pressing, just open. You say maybe. He smiles, not triumphant, just warm. I'll be here, he says. And that's it. He doesn't say more, doesn't ask for confirmation, doesn't set a time. He just goes back to eating, and the moment drifts into the rest of the morning like cream into coffee swirling, changing everything just a little. You think about it all week. Saturday. You don't even realize how much until Friday night, when you're standing in front of your closet longer than usual, wondering what sweater feels like something you'd wear on a maybe date that isn't really a date. You don't pick anything too carefully. And then you do. Eventually, you settle on something soft, familiar, a coat with a pocket big enough for a book and a notebook you haven't written in since last Tuesday. The morning is quiet. No rain but clouds, a stillness in the air, as though the city hasn't fully woken up yet. You arrive late. Not intentionally, but later than you would on a Tuesday. Part of you was nervous. Part of you got caught staring at your reflection, asking questions you couldn't quite answer. But when you push the cafe door open, he's already there. Table 9. Same table, different day. And everything feels a little new. He's wearing a different coat, one you haven't seen before, navy, with a little fray at the sleeve. There's a copy of the book you once lent him sitting beside his coffee. It looks more worn now, loved. He stands when he sees you. Just a little, just enough to show he was waiting. I wasn't sure you'd come, he says. I wasn't sure either, you admit, but I'm glad. So am I. You sit beside him again, not across. It's your seat now. You can feel it. You order a pot of tea instead of coffee. He notices, but doesn't comment. Instead, he pours the first cup for you when it arrives, like he's done it before, like it's natural now. It is. The cafe feels different on Saturdays. Busier somehow, brighter. People stay longer, linger. There's a child playing with sugar packets at the table nearby. A couple sharing pancakes in quiet affection. And then there's you two. Still your own little island. Still your own weather system. I brought something, he says, sliding a small bundle across the table. It's wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. You untie it slowly. Inside, a notebook. Blank, cream pages, bound in soft gray linen. Your name is written inside the cover in his handwriting. Just your first name. But it's the most beautiful thing you've seen all week. I saw it last time, he says, and I couldn't stop thinking it was meant for you. You run your hand over the cover, slowly. I love it, you say. And you do. You reach into your bag, pull out a folded piece of paper. Your latest poem. You slide it to him. He reads it right there, not waiting. When he finishes, he looks up and says, "You make quiet feel like a song." You don't know how to respond to that, so you don't try. You just smile, and the day unfolds around you. You talk about weekend things, the smell of cinnamon, his favorite corner of the used bookstore a few blocks away. You tell him about the window in your kitchen that fogs up when you boil water and how you sometimes draw faces in the steam. He tells you he makes terrible pancakes. You offer to judge that for yourself sometime. He laughs, and it's a laugh that stays in the air longer than it should, a laugh with color in it. The hours pass gently. When the cafe gets too crowded, you both glance toward the door, and then without needing to ask, stand and walk out together. Not part of the way, not to the corner, all the way. You walk side by side through quieter streets. There's a small market nearby. He buys you an apple. You buy him a paper cone of roasted almonds. You eat as you walk. You don't talk as much now, and yet you feel everything. You pass a bookstore. You step inside together. He pulls a book off the shelf and opens it to a random page, points to a sentence that makes you laugh. You find one that makes him go quiet for a moment. You don't buy the books. You just hold them for a while, share them, then place them back gently, like something sacred. You walk again. At one point, your hands touch, and this time you don't let go. The weight of his hand in yours is light, familiar, like holding a well-worn story you already know the rhythm of. When you reach your door, he doesn't step away. You both stop. No hurry, no script. "I'm glad it wasn't just Tuesdays," he says. You nod. "Me too." He doesn't kiss you, but his thumb brushes the back of your hand. His forehead leans toward yours. You stand there, pressed together by something softer than gravity. It's not a kiss, but it's a beginning. You don't go to the cafe the next Tuesday. You wake up early as usual. You hear the rain tapping the window the way it always does, soft and steady, like it's remembering something. Your coat is waiting on its hook. Your scarf draped over the back of the chair. The walk would only take 10 minutes. But you don't go, because this morning, you're meeting somewhere else. His apartment is only a few blocks farther than the cafe. A different direction, quieter. The streets feel narrower, like they're leaning in to listen. You walk with your hands in your pockets, your notebook tucked beneath your arm, the gray linen cover worn now from where your thumb always finds the edge. There's no bell above his door, just a gentle knock, and then he opens it. He smiles the moment he sees you, and everything else fades. You step inside. It smells like cedar and coffee and something warm from the oven. There's music playing low from an old speaker in the corner, soft piano notes drifting lazily through the space like dust motes in the light. It doesn't feel unfamiliar. It feels like an extension of him. Books stacked in uneven piles, a plant in the window that looks like it's been rescued and loved back to life, a mug with a chipped lip, a tiny collection of pebbles on a tray by the door, smooth and ordinary, each one with a story he hasn't told you yet. He takes your coat, brushes rain from your shoulder with the back of his hand. You stand in the doorway, suddenly still, and he says, very softly, "Would you like some tea?" And that's how it begins. You sit on the floor beside the coffee table. There's a cushion under you, and your knees are nearly touching. The tea is chamomile. The mugs don't match. The rain keeps falling. He opens his notebook. You open yours. You exchange poems. You exchange laughter. He reads you something he wrote the night after your first walk, something about two shadows falling in the same direction. You tell him about a dream you had last week about a book that wrote itself every time you opened it. "Was I in it?" he asks, not joking. You smile. "Not at first. But later?" "Yes." He leans his chin into his hand. "Good." You spend most of the morning talking, not about anything large or heavy, just the kind of talking that makes hours disappear. Favorite breakfast foods, the best lines from the worst books. Whether the moon feels lonelier than the sun, you learn that he plays piano badly but with feeling, that he once tried to write a novel and got stuck in the second chapter. You ask if he still has it. He pulls out a folder from the bookshelf without hesitation. You read the first page. It's lovely. He watches you read it. You don't look away. At some point, you move from the floor to the sofa. Your feet are tucked under you. His arm is resting along the back, not touching you, but close. You look at him, and he looks back, and then, the moment becomes something else. It isn't sudden. It isn't loud. It's just right. You lean in, and he meets you. The kiss is soft, familiar, a continuation, not a beginning, as if your lips have been writing the same story for weeks, and this is simply the next chapter. When you pull back, you both stay there, foreheads pressed together, eyes closed, breathing each other in like you're learning something by heart. Later, he makes you pancakes. They're terrible. Flat, a little burnt. One sticks to the pan and tears in the middle. But he's laughing the whole time, and you're laughing too, and you eat them anyway because they're his, and because he drizzles them with honey and calls them experimental. You tell him you'll bring real ones next week. "Deal," he says. After breakfast, you sit at the window. There's a fog outside, and everything looks blurred, softened the way dreams do just before you wake. He picks up his pencil and starts sketching again. Not the table this time, your hands resting in your lap. You pretend not to notice. You flip open your notebook and begin writing. Just a sentence. This is not where the story ends. You underline it. He leans over, peeking at your page, smiles. "Is that your new title?" he asks. "No," you say, "just the truth." That night he walks you home, even though it's dark, even though the rain has started again. He walks with you anyway, and at your door he doesn't say, "See you next Tuesday." He says, "See you soon." You nod. You kiss again, and this time it feels like punctuation, not an exclamation, just a soft period, the kind that finishes one page, knowing there's another right behind it. You step inside, close the door behind you, lean against it for a moment. You breathe, and then you open your notebook again. You write, "We shared a table," then a silence, then a sentence, then a walk, then a weekend, then a kiss. Then everything. You smile, not just with your mouth, but with the part of you that had been waiting, quietly, for something like this, for someone like him, someone who brought jam and books and notes on napkins, someone who understood quiet as a language, someone who never tried to rush anything beautiful. You close the notebook. The story isn't over, not even close. It's just becoming, the way all the best things daw slowly, softly, and with the kind of warmth that lingers long after the last page is turned.